Okay, next speaker, Beth Presswood, host of the amazing podcast, The Godless Bitches. It's a good name, too. She's going to be talking about understanding believers and the people that are ex-believers. Not all of us had a fiery exit from faith. Some of us just kind of meandered out, maybe didn't have a real basis in faith at any point. And it can be hard to communicate with people sometimes that have that, either had it or still have it. So Beth's going to talk to us a little bit about taking care of that. Please welcome Beth.
All right, so it's more people than I expected to see here based on what was going on last night. So that's good. That's good. I'm sure y'all were warmed up by Fitz's talk there. So hopefully you'll be in the mood to, yes. So let's take a poll. How many here are ex-believers? Quite a lot of you. Who's a lifelong atheist? Oh, okay. Some of y'all here. That's good. So this talk was going to be, I hate lifelong atheists and they suck. No, I love y'all. I have a lot of friends who didn't get indoctrinated, and that's really great for them. But sometimes they can say things that are maybe a little insensitive, or maybe they just don't understand some things. So this talk is sort of directed at them and y'all there. And some of the tips will be to ex-believers as well, just anybody, especially if you maybe came out of more liberal religion and weren't a fundamentalist. So hopefully everybody's going to get something out of this. Okay. One of the biggest issues I see this online all the time, and I've heard it in person, is you didn't really believe that. People don't really believe that. Yes, they do. They really believe it deep down in their hearts. I know. I believed it. I really believed in God. I really believed in Jesus. I really believed that people were going to hell. And a lot of people, if you were not indoctrinated in that, you're going to be like, this doesn't make any sense. But that's the point. The thing is, even if you don't get it, even if you don't understand, and I don't think anybody who's not been a believer can really, truly understand it, even if you don't, when you say they don't really believe that, they can't really believe that, you're calling us liars. And that doesn't feel good. Nobody wants to be called a liar. And you're calling this, probably the majority of active atheists I see in person are ex-believers. So even if you think that, even if you believe that deep in your heart and nothing I say will change that, when you put that discourse out into the public, it can be really hurtful to people. And you're calling, 90% of people believe in God or something. Maybe that's going down a bit. You're calling all those people liars. And who are you to call those people liars? Are you able to read their minds? Do you have some special powers? If you do, you can apply for the $1 million prize at the JREF. Sometimes people argue that, they're hypocrites. Well, they must not really believe that because they go against it. Well, sometimes you may not know what they actually believe. You may be projecting certain fundamentalist beliefs onto people that they actually do not have. So if you don't understand it and you're calling it hypocrisy, that's wrong, obviously, to do. And you may perceive contradictions that they're not perceiving because of the psychological scaffolding of their indoctrination. So you can't say that they don't believe it based on that. Like a person in a forum once said, well, you believe in evolution, how come you're not popping out babies? After all, you have to show that you're the fittest. And it was just like, no, you don't actually understand evolution and what it would imply, although, it would be a naturalistic fallacy to say that it could imply much of anything. As for this meme, yeah, that could seem contradictory. Oh, you're going to heaven, so why don't you kill yourself, which you can dismiss by suicide being a sin. But, oh, why don't you just be reckless with your life? You're going to go up there, it's going to be great, so why do you even want to be here? The thing is, you can believe in free will, that God gives us free will to hurt ourselves and be reckless, and that you can still protect yourself from that. You know, there is a contradiction between free will and omniscience, but if you're not deep into philosophy, you're not going to get that. And most Christians don't go deep into philosophy. So they do believe that they can make choices, and maybe God will work with their choices. You know, if they don't wear the seatbelt, well, maybe God will decide that that's when they need to be a traveling paraplegic preacher who tells people that God saved them from actually being killed so they can go save more people. And there's actual Bible verses that say that you should not do things like that, which if you will turn in your Bibles to Luke, this is Jesus being tempted by Satan. So he took him to Jerusalem, had him stand on the pinnacle of the temple, and said to him, "If you are the Son of God, throw yourself down from here, for it is written, He will give His angels orders concerning you, to protect you, and they will support you with their hands so that you will not strike your foot against a stone." And Jesus answered him, "It is said, do not test the Lord your God." So, you know, some atheist is saying this meme, well, why don't you just be reckless? Right here in the Bible, it says don't do that. Now, it probably contradicts itself somewhere on that, but when that question comes up, they can recall that verse. So you may argue that they don't actually believe it because they're not preaching all the time about hell. Well, some of them do preach all the time about hell, as you can see at college campuses and other sorts of street preachers. But a lot of them are taught in their churches that that's not the best way to proselytize. The best way to proselytize is with good witness of your life and the joy that's in your heart. And there are also verses that support that. So, yes, they may be concerned about you going to hell, but they know that the best way to make you not go to hell is to be nice to you and to act wonderful and sweet so that you'll ask them, you know, what's different in your life that gives you this joy in your heart? And they hope that you'll ask that question so that they can then tell you about Jesus. And some of them have a lot of guilt for not being, not proselytizing more. There's whole entire videos and stories about letters from hell where, oh, my friend died in a car wreck and wrote me this letter from hell because I never told them about Jesus. And it's a terrible guilt on a Christian, but they still have to live their life. They can't go around preaching Jesus all the time and live a normal life. So it's a tug of war inside of them, but they do still believe. And as I said, people are not mind readers. You really don't know what's in their hearts. Maybe they're struggling. Maybe if you plant a seed of atheism, it will grow in their doubts. And last of all, on do they really believe it? Do you like it when people tell you what you believe? Do you like it when Christians tell you that you really, really believe in God? Do you like it when they quote these verses? And if you will turn in your Bibles again, which, by the way, with this dress and this Bible, I'm just going to go infiltrate the church service over there. So, the heavens declare the glory of God, and the sky proclaims the work of His hands. But it's basically that everyone can see that creation is here, that God created everything, the heavens declare the glory of God, and that we are without excuse. So the Bible literally says, oh, if they say they don't believe in God, they don't really believe it. So just tell them that they actually believe, and that will make them get saved somehow. Don't exactly know how that works. So, why did we actually believe it? And the short answer is indoctrination. since we are majority ex-believers, I'm sure a lot of you went through indoctrination. And if you did escape indoctrination, that's really, really great. I'm glad for you. You will not have the psychological scarring. But you're also not going to understand what other people have gone through. There's a very good evolutionary reason that children are little sponges and that they do, to a degree, respect authority and believe what adults around them tell you. Some kids are heavily resistant to authority. They're natural little freethinkers. And that varies. That's obviously on a spectrum. So the thing is, if you were one of those kids who didn't believe, even though you were told about Jesus and God and Christianity, that doesn't make you special. That's, don't be smug about that, because you might have been the little kid back in the day getting eaten by a tiger because you didn't listen to mom and dad. And I have seen a lot of that smugness from some lifelong believers. It simply doesn't occur to most people to question what they've always been brought up with. And obviously that's an idea that we need to get out into the public, that it is okay to question, it is okay to doubt. But most people are not going to go into that. These things are reinforced Sunday morning, Sunday evening, Wednesday night, at Friday night youth events. If you never meet a non-believer, which is getting rarer and rarer by the day, there's never any example of anybody who's not an evil atheist. If you're told atheists are evil all your life, and you meet an atheist and they're really nice, that starts planting seeds. That starts planting doubt, which is why as many people as can be should be out. Another huge reason for belief is fear. We were afraid. If you grew up in a denomination or religion that taught hell, this is what you're taught. This is a chick tract. I was taught directly from chick tracts about hell and how it was terrible and how I never wanted to go there. And you're taught, if you even question just a little bit, you might end up there. There's hell houses, every October near Halloween. Oh, you could die in a car wreck tonight, and you would be in the fiery pit of hell. And it's scary. If you're told this when you're 5, 6, 4, it's going to get into your head. We get emails from people who've been atheists 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and they are still waking up sometimes with nightmares of hell. And all the rational reasons in the world are cold comfort when you're waking up from that nightmare of hell. So, we had feels. This is one that even I have some problems understanding because I didn't have a lot of emotional experiences with belief. So we'd go to church camp, and everyone else would be raising their hands and singing and swaying, and they'd get Jesus in their heart. And we didn't speak in tongues because we were Baptist, but there was a very charismatic influence that I think started, in the 80s, 90s, things like that. Even Baptist youth were starting to get into that, and I didn't understand it at all. And I thought it was weird and freaky and scary. But Matt Dillahunty, my husband, has said this before, if you've ever had an experience from secular music or sex or anything like that, then you understand that these are natural. But if you only understand them in the context of the supernatural, you're going to assign a supernatural explanation for it. And it's only when people start getting out, if they ever start getting out and having these experiences, that they're going to understand, oh, this is a natural thing. It doesn't mean that Jesus came into my heart. But these can be very, very powerful. I mean, you can't really argue with somebody that they didn't feel God. Because you're not in their head, as we said before. If they feel, the only thing you can say to that is, to personal experience claim, is, well, that's evidence for you, maybe very poor evidence, but it's not evidence for anyone else. At which point they're probably going to say, well, I'm going to pray for you to have that experience, and the conversation is sort of over at that point. And as far as church camp again, when I was little, I was a voracious reader, and I loved Brave New World, and Huxley's Brave New World Revisited. Now, it's probably really dated and maybe not very scientific, but he went over a lot of the early research about propaganda and brainwashing and talked a lot about how Hitler had done his speeches in certain cadence and kept people up with sleep deprivation and other things that he had done to try to influence people. And I read that, and I was like, that's church camp. Sleep deprivation, keeping us up till all hours, just repetitive music over and over, being preached at, and the preacher cadence there is something physiological there. I'm not sure of all the research on it, but I do think that. And that's what it was. I was like, this is brainwashing. I may not have fully been an atheist at that time, but I'm like, they're trying to influence us. And I didn't think that was the correct way to go about influencing us. I thought, why are they not doing apologetics? Why are they not, doing Bible study? No, they are keeping us up late at night and telling us we're dirty sinners because we lust. And that is the way that they got people to cry, get on their knees, and sob, and rededicate their life. Of course, they always rededicate their life next week after, that particular weekend and whatever happened. Another thing that I hate to see is religion is a mental illness, because it's not. Yeah, you can clap for that. I didn't come up with that. There are a lot of other people in the atheist movement, J.T. Eberhard and Michael and Everhart, going around saying this. It doesn't fit, any psychological definition, any medical definition of mental illness, any sociological definition of mental illness. People that say God talks to them 99% of the time do not mean audible hallucinations. They mean that they are assigning agency to things that happen in their life. Oh, I got a promotion. God's happy with me. Or I really feel strongly about this thing, so I'm going to say God told me to run for president. Things like that. They don't actually mean they're hearing voices. And if you interpret it that way, that is not the correct way to interpret it. And I think most people know that, but some people want to go on this so they can call Christians and believers deluded and irrational and crazy and, a lot of other ableist things for that. And they want to feel better than those people. And we all know those internet atheists. They're probably not any here. So this is more to get out to them, maybe in the video. And, a few other things for the people that are here. We weren't dumb. Our IQ didn't go up when we stopped believing, as Matt says. Every so often, a study will come out saying, atheists, non-religious people have higher IQs than Christians, believers, fundamentalist Christians, whatever. The studies are different. Okay, is that study a good study? Is IQ even a good measure of anything? Are there socioeconomic factors? Any of this, I really dislike, even if it's true. Here's the thing, even if it's true, even if it comes out study after study after study, does it really profit us to say, oh, we're smarter, oh, we're always going to be smarter, and you can't give up your belief because you're too stupid? It profits us nothing to say things like that, because we know that people can become non-believers. People, even that maybe aren't that smart, maybe aren't that educated, they can still not believe in God. They can still try to use evidence in their life. They can still get better. So it does us no good to put people down for that. And also, the Bible has some anti-intellectualism built in. If I can find this verse, I will give that. For to those who are perishing, the message of the cross is foolishness, but to those who are being saved, it is God's power. For it is written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise, and I will set aside the understanding of the experts. Where is the philosopher? Where is the scholar? Where is the debater of this age? Hasn't God made the world's wisdom foolish? So even if a person does have an innate curiosity, even if they are smart, even if they want to learn, they have this book and people telling them that they don't need to seek out evidence and things like that. My own dad said, and I quote, "You need to quit that thinking." So there's that strain of anti-intellectual Christianity out there. Although there are some that, try to use philosophy, try to use apologetics, hermeneutics, and all those things. They're still wrong, but, So we talked about believers. What about ex-believers? So these are some things that, maybe lifelong atheists and ex-believers interacting together that I've witnessed. Now, most of the time, you can't even tell. I'm not saying that there's a huge divide on this issue, but there are just a few things that I've seen crop up from time to time. And, I'm online a lot. I'm at a bunch of conferences. So, I see things that maybe people at their first conference, they're like, what is this? I haven't heard of any of this. So you stop believing in God. Now what? Is coming out the next logical step? A lot of people seem to think so. We have the Out campaign. We have, coming out videos. It's a big deal. And for a lot of people, coming out is liberating. It's wonderful. And, they just feel that they need to come out. They feel that they can't lie. And coming out is great for other people around you. They get to meet an atheist. They meet the nice atheist. The seeds of doubt get planted. But there are some people that just can't or just won't. And it's not up to other people to judge. Oh, well, you seem like, your parents don't seem that fundamentalist. People with much more ridiculous parents have come out. Why don't you? The thing is, it's individual. You can't make that decision for somebody else. So outing people is obviously wrong, although I don't think I've ever seen that, an atheist do that to another atheist. But it's really not anybody's place to question. There's a lot there. You never know what's really going on in someone else's family and what could go on in their work life. If you're, up in New York or something and you're telling people, oh, come out in Mississippi, it'll be okay, and you don't know what you're talking about, that could really hurt some people. So obviously, don't do that. Another thing I see criticism of is Atheist Church. First of all, the Sunday Assembly, Oasis, Community Mission Chapel, there are probably others. They don't use the word church. I think there's maybe one that does, North Texas Church of Free Thought or something. I haven't heard about them in a while. They don't use the word church. It's a media term. So we're already being inaccurate by calling it church. And even if they did, if they're using it as a format label, and that's fine. Dictionaries are not authorities. Usage is what makes a word have meaning. So a lot of this surrounds, it confuses Christians, and they're going to call us a religion, and my internet debates are going to be harder. And my response is, I don't care about your internet debates. I think the importance of community and the format of what those people want to make their community, and even if their format is a little churchy, I care more about their needs than I care about confusing Christians or your internet debates. Okay. You can not want to go, you can hate it, you can hate the idea of it, but that's all you can say about it. You can say, that's not for me. I wouldn't go. And a lot of ex-believers are like, that's way too traumatic. I have PTSD. I could never go to this. And that's fine. And we have room for that diversity in our community. But if your main concern is the Christians, here's the thing. First of all, don't care. Again, I just want to emphasize that. And second of all, I don't think they're actually genuine. Now, again, you can't know what's in somebody's head, and you can't read their mind. But if they won't even give a definition of religion that makes any sense, and they won't say, oh, yes, well, my definition of religion being people meeting together would also apply to football games, and they're not going to respond to that. I don't think the question is in good faith. They're just being hateful and just trying to win an internet debate. And I think the best thing to do to that is to call that out. You haven't defined religion. This is about community. I gave you one explanation, and now you're just being mean. And I just do not engage with it as a good faith question. I also don't engage that question about Christmas. Because I feel the fact that atheists celebrating a secular Christmas is perfectly normal, perfectly natural. I don't think anybody who is in this society sees that 93% of Americans celebrate Christmas, including 81% of non-believers and 87% of the nuns, could walk around Rockefeller Center and be like, this is all about Jesus. Because it's not. It's not historically. There are a lot of good books and things that are coming out about that. And I don't think it's a genuine question. I think they are just being hateful when they say things like that, so I don't even engage it as something like that. You give them one explanation about it having pagan roots, its secularization, and that you don't celebrate Jesus. And if they persist, that's on them. On Christmas, I will bring up someone that I feel is doing a disservice to the atheist community. Now, he is an ex-believer, but a lot of people using his rhetoric are lifelongs. And so this is not exclusive. This is just something I wanted to rant about, basically. Tom Flynn is the vice president of CFI, Center for Inquiry. And he wrote a book called The Trouble with Christmas, where he argues it's not even Christian, and it has a very short history, that it comes from, the Victorians mostly. But he also says you're not a real atheist if you celebrate Christmas, and that basically if you do anything but stare at the wall in December, including doing human light, solstice, or anything else, that you are being a bad atheist. Yes. So I gave up protecting my witness a long time ago and caring too much about what Christians think. Sometimes I think atheists care way too much about what Christians think, and we should just live our lives in secular community and not worry about confusing people that I don't even think are actually confused. And there's a picture of me with Ray Comfort dealing with believers. So I just brought up, the Christmas and the Atheist Church. There's no wrong way to atheist. There's no right way to atheist. You either believe in God or you don't. And I don't believe in protecting your witness or even really protecting the movement. If you're going to accuse another atheist of doing harm to the movement, you better bring evidence. And if your only evidence is that, well, I don't like that, so you shouldn't do that, or I think you're confusing Christians even though I don't really have any evidence that they're actually confused and these things are really explainable, no, I'm not going to buy that. So let's talk about dealing with believers. And this is, if you're an ex-believer, you probably can deal with believers pretty well, at least believers of what you were an ex of. But I think these tips could go for anybody, actually. Don't assume. Don't assume what a Christian believes. Especially if you are not very familiar with Christianity, with all the denominations of Christianity, mainstream, liberal, conservative, fundamental. If you don't know these small things in there, don't assume. Ask them what they believe and why, just like as is done on the Atheist Experience. And don't tell them what they believe. Let them tell you, even if you know their denomination, even if you're from their denomination, let them talk. Let them get out what they believe. If you detect a contradiction between what they believe and what they should believe according to their denomination, go for that. Go for that if you know it. But if you don't, stick to general arguments about God. Stick to the Bible if you know the Bible. But if you don't know certain things and you start wading into deep theological waters and you're out of your depth, they can dismiss you. They can dismiss you for, oh, they just believe all those myths about Catholics. They just believe all those myths about Southern Baptist. And they're just going to laugh. They're just going to dismiss you as a threat. When if you just talked about God and arguments that you know, they might actually get some seeds of doubt planted. Be careful about the Bible. Bible beware. Now, yes, there are studies out there that say atheists know the Bible more than other people. And those are, general knowledge questions about the Bible. They do. But again, there are interpretations to those studies. There are caveats. It's just like, oh, atheists are smarter. You can't just say that generally and think, oh, well, I'm an atheist. I know a few things about the Bible. I am qualified to debate any apologist or anybody online that I don't know their credentials or what they know. Here's the thing. Those lists of contradictions that you see, and I love Skeptics Annotated Bible, and it's great, not all of them are actually contradictions. Some of them, there is context. Context can matter. There are things that, oh, slavery was okay in context. No, it wasn't. There's no context that can make that better. But if you're just going to pull out, oh, one little word, and you don't know, what it actually means or the translations of it, you have no business going near it. And it's perfectly fine. Don't argue the Bible at all. Sometimes that's really the best tactic. They quote the Bible, and instead of quoting the Bible back, be like, why do I care about the Bible? It really can be the best tactic. And I rarely use the Bible at all anymore in debates or talks. And so a couple of Bible memes I'm going to pull out. Simple logic. Jealousy is a sin. Scripture reference. The Bible, the God is jealous. Scripture reference. Therefore, God's a sinner. No, this is overly simplistic. First of all, I don't even know that the word jealousy is the actual same word in Greek. Well, first of all, that's an Old Testament and New Testament, which there are issues mixing those up again. So Hebrew, Greek, you don't know that this is even the same word. Plus, God is above sin. According to different theologies, there are different theologies of God. So God can't sin, God can't lie. This is basic things that Christians know. So calling God a sinner, no, God gets to decide what's sin and what's not. God's above that stuff. I mean, they'll argue about the atrocities, about slavery and rape and killing in the Bible. Well, God's above all that. They might subscribe to divine command theory or something of morality. Well, God says it, so it's fine. So it's ridiculous to post things like this in a debate or even just in atheist groups. It just doesn't make any sense. Another one I found, just a couple of verses about adultery. Thou shalt not commit adultery. God will judge adulterers. Oh, adultery allowed, but all the women children that have not known a man by lying with him, keep alive for yourselves. Okay. Sex slavery is not adultery, according to the Bible. Adultery is basically women sleeping around or sleeping with another man's property. It's not sex slavery. I mean, it's not, fornication isn't even adultery, technically. And then Hosea. Hosea was ordered by God to marry a sex worker, I'm going to use that term. And because it was a parable of idolatry being compared to adultery. It wasn't like God told his wife, oh, you can just go sleep around or whatever. It was a parable. She was obviously going to be judged as a sinner. So this is not any example of adultery being allowed. This is just people doing word searches and thinking that they can make a meme out of it. And again, this is another little pet peeve of mine, which I could have just titled this talk, Don't Be That Atheist. I do hear these things from other people, though, so it's not just, oh, this is just a talk about what Beth hates. So judge not, lest you be judged. Matthew. So you're going to hear this all the time. Somebody will call out, well, X is a sin. And they'll be like, judge not, lest you be judged. So, do not judge so that you won't be judged. For with the judgment you use, you will be judged, and with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Why do you look at the speck in your brother's eye, but don't notice the log in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, and look, there's a log in your eye? Hypocrite! First take the log out of your eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye. So this is not, you can't call out sin, or, don't judge people. This is, if you're a hypocrite, don't judge people. So all Christians are technically hypocrites to some degree, because you can't obviously follow this book. But if you are, say, a straight person calling out a gay person saying, this book says you're wrong, and you're not, a closet case with, male sex workers and things, then you are actually doing what you're supposed to. You don't have a log in your eye. You are trying to take the speck out of your brother's eye. So you are following the book. You can't just say, do not judge, because you will be taking this out of its context of hypocrisy. And this is another meme. This one's not about the Bible. This one is about differences between denominations. Every week I put the body of Jesus in my mouth, then I wash it down with his blood, on Joel Osteen. The thing is, this meme implies the idea of transubstantiation, which is a Catholic belief that the wafer becomes actual Jesus meat. Protestants don't believe that. Joel Osteen, I think, is a non-denominational Protestant. He doesn't believe that. He probably doesn't even have the Lord's Supper at his church every week. So it just looks ridiculous and makes people look ridiculous that they don't even know basic facts about denominations. Another thing, speaking of Joel Osteen, I hate to hear is about preachers. Preachers are rich, preachers make all this money, blah, blah, blah. Okay, Joel Osteen's net worth, $40 million. I think that's probably right. Didn't fact check this, but I did watch, I can't even think, John Oliver about megachurch preachers. The thing is, most churches are not megachurches. Average church in America, about 100 people. Average preacher's salary, it was hard to get any sort of number, but I did look at the Southern Baptist Convention stats, which is the largest Protestant denomination. Half of preachers have day jobs. 75% in some states, including my home state of Tennessee. 75% of churches, less than 100 people. Some churches, 20 people, 40 people. And they can't support a preacher on that. Most preachers are preaching not for a lot of money. And the thing is, we joke, oh, well, I could just become one of those ex-atheists on the ex-atheist circuit and start making tons of money. Well, probably not. Traveling evangelists and stuff like Jerry DeWitt, he made nothing. He made like maybe $10,000 a year, if that. He lived on love offerings that didn't cover his gas. And yes, he taught things that were not true, but he actually believed them, and he was not lying for profit. And you could see that in how he lived. Now, Joel Osteen, maybe he believes it, maybe he doesn't. We really don't know. But most preachers, not Joel Osteen, not Joyce Meyer, not any of those people. And I know so many ex-preachers, Jerry DeWitt, Dan Barker, Richard Haynes, all these people, and I'm like, they were not in it for the money. And to say that they all are, or even the majority of them are, can be really hurtful to people in the clergy project and others that we want to come out. And I'm sort of running up on time here, but again, talking to believers, I'll pray for you. It's sort of like bless your heart. It depends on how it's said. It can either be a really nice thing, oh, your dad died, your dad's sick, oh, I'll pray for you. Or at the end of a big conversation and a big debate, well, I'll pray for you. And that's just a very thinly veiled fuck you. And the trick is to know the difference and to act appropriately in that circumstance. And there are some advantages to being a lifelong atheist. You do escape the indoctrination And you have an advantage when you're talking to Christians because they can't say you're mad at God, that you're just mad at the church. You have this blank slate, and they can proselytize to you just like, oh, well, you've just never really felt the good news, and you really need Jesus. And sometimes that's a great place to start, to try to get them to go from the bare bones with somebody who doesn't believe in God, hasn't ever believed in God, doesn't know any of this stuff, and to watch them try to take it all the way to Jesus can be very interesting when I've actually seen this done. And again, at the very end, if you are talking to believers, don't expect too much. It's all about planting a seed. It's all about watching that seed grow. You may never see any reward from that, but we do at the Atheist Experience when we get these letters and these emails from people that say, oh, I watched your show as a believer. It was terrible. I hated you. You're awful. And now I'm an atheist.